Hey everybody, what's going on? Steve DeCasa here. Just doing a new Ask Steve. I've got a lot of questions piled up, and it's time I take the time. It's time I take the time and sit down and answer them. I got about 4 or 5. I haven't checked. I also decided today to do a little bit more different look with the lighting. I decided to go a little more dramatic. I've been shooting a lot of short films lately, so I've just been more inspired to do a little bit more of a short film type look. I've been lighting all my other Ask Steves just with a simple light and just flat on me, nothing crazy. If you saw my glide cam video, I had a backlight like this one right here, but I forgot to put it on, so whatever. But now I've got a nice 3-point lighting set up. I got my key, I had a reflector hitting me from the side doing the fill, and I got my hair light in the back giving me this nice rim light separating me from the background. Okay, well, now that I talked about a little bit the lighting, let's get right to the questions. So, first question. Hey Steve, great tutorial on audio with the Zoom H4n, by the way. I'm a videographer transitioning to filmmaking, and I have a question. I know you can use the Zoom H4n to pick up audio with its internal mics. What's the difference and how much of a difference is it? Not using the mic you borrowed from your friend on any external mic. Thanks a lot. Keep making tutorials. Good stuff. That's from A. Ashafa. I am using the H4n right now to record. I have a lavalier mic on, tapping it right there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know the device I'm talking about, here you can go to the tutorial I made all about it right here. Shows you exactly how to use it. The tutorial is about filmmaking, about short filmmaking, or I guess it could be documentary filmmaking. I borrowed a microphone from a friend. I don't own a shotgun microphone, a boom microphone. They're a bit expensive, and it's on my list. I usually end up just borrowing it from my friend because he's really cool and he's like his own production company. So check that out if you don't know what we're talking about. But here's my opinion. I wouldn't use the H4n to record anything with its internal mics, simply because it becomes a bit of a hassle. I'll show you the device right here. I might make some noise because of whatever, but here's the device right here. I have it plugged in to the power. I'm actually going direct with the lavalier so I'm not wireless right now. I'm direct plugged in, so there's no wire, radio interference. If you go into the menu and you go to power, what is it? In the menu, it is input and then plug in. You turn that on, and it'll power your wireless microphone. It'll basically like a Phantom, except I'm using it in the external mic here instead of the microphone here. So in other words, right now I'm replacing their internal microphones right here with my wireless microphone, even though I'm wired right now. So what you're hearing is the microphone coming off my chest. If you want to hear the difference, I'm going to show you right now. So here I'm going to unplug. So now you should be hearing these microphones. Now the thing is, you'd have to have it right out of frame. You need to put it right here. So the closest I can get the microphone would be right here. So check 1, 2. This sounds, it sounds okay, whatever. But problem is, if you're shooting a short film and someone starts screaming or someone starts speaking really low, you need to grab the thing and turn the levels down. It's not a professional, it's not really professional, because professional people have the mixer right in front of them. They can screw it in, or they can dial in the levels or whatever. I guess you could use this as a microphone and bring it to a mixer and then control the levels in the mixer. But if you're going to spend the money on the mixer, you might as well spend the money on the boom mic and then not have a mixer and just use this as your levels. So like I was saying, if you're using this to be your boom mic and someone starts speaking really low, you have to take the boom mic out of where it needs to be, turn the levels up, and put it back in. It's not going to work. You need to have a boom operator booming and keeping the mic here the whole time, and somebody else holding this thing and doing the levels on the fly. Unless you're doing something like this where you can just plant it and use the audio that way, I wouldn't suggest using the microphones. But the microphones are there for a reason. I'm sure you can find applications to use the microphone on this just like I'm using it right now. But I just happen to like the way the audio sounds on my lavalier, so I'm gonna plug it back in. So there we are. Let me just mount it back. I have it on a little stand right here. Okay. Just gonna make sure that's good. Still rolling, still got good levels. All right, so I don't have to worry about it now. I think that's all I have to say about that one. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, so another audio question with the H4n. This is from Raphael. Hi, I have known that many people have talked about how the Zoom H4n drains battery life pretty fast, and how the levels of the Zoom H4n and the Rode NTG2 are sometimes pretty weak. Has that ever occurred to you before? Do you need a preamp for the Rode NTG and the Zoom H4n? Now, you're confusing me a bit, Raphael, because the first sentence talks about battery life. And when you do talk about battery life, you talk about your battery level. You could say battery level. So, talking about your battery level. In the second sentence, how the levels of the Zoom H4n and the Rode NTG are sometimes pretty weak. By weak, do you mean levels, audio levels, like loudness, or do you mean battery levels, like power? So I'm not quite sure what you mean. But I will say that, yes, the H4n drains batteries like a MFer. So if you watch my tutorial, once again, right here, if you watch the tutorial, I recommend using lithium batteries. If you can't plug the thing in, if you're not in an area where you can plug it in, use lithium batteries. Go into the menu and make sure the battery is selected to lithium so it knows and you get the most out of your battery life. If you're in an area where you can plug it in, I would plug it in just to be absolutely sure nothing happens. As for the Rode NTG battery level, honestly, I don't know. I haven't used it that much to know. I mean, I used it on a short film for 3 days in a row and we never needed to change the battery. There was a lithium inside of it. We never need to change it. The microphone doesn't take up too much battery power, but if you're in an area where you can plug the H4n into the wall, you can turn the phantom power on, and then you don't even need a battery in the boom mic. It'll power it straight from the wall. So from the wall to the H4n to the boom mic, you turn the phantom power on, it'll power the boom mic, and you don't need to worry about levels at all. If you're in a controlled situation, plug the thing in, turn on phantom power, and you're good to go. As for preamp, that talks about levels. Do you need a preamp? I'm pretty sure that the Zoom H4n, and I'm not an audio whiz, so I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure the H4n has its own preamp in it. Without its own preamp, you wouldn't be getting any signal at all, I think. I think you need a preamp in order for it to hear something. I think that's how I think you can technically call it a sound recorder / preamp. Correct me if I'm wrong. Once again, like I said, I'm not a audio aficionado, but if you're looking to boost the signal, because you can only go so loud with it. If you are looking to boost the signal, you might need to get another piece of equipment, another preamp to boost the signal or something to that effect. I'm not really your guy to do that. I've never had to put this thing at all the way max level. I mean, I've gotten close, but usually that's because I'm using a wireless system, and the wireless system itself has its own levels too. You can put the sensitivity up or down on your wireless. For a boom mic, you don't need to. Plus, I mean, that would mean you're trying to record something really low. You could always record it low and then boost it later in post if you need to. It's going to add a little hiss probably, but you know, that's what you can do. Okay, Raphael, thank you for your question. Next one. All right, so we've made it to our third question. It's a little bit different topic now. Depth of field. Hi there, loved your video detailing the differences between the 5D and the 7D, etc. I think that was Ask Steve episode 2, I think. I have a question for you about depth of field, since that's a big reason I'm planning on buying a DSLR. I got this question a long time ago. I hope you haven't bought it yet, but maybe you have. Good luck with your purchase. As I understand it, using a fast lens that has a low f-stop, such as 1.4, will give you a shallow depth of field. But can't you achieve depth of field by using a zoom lens as well instead of a fast prime? What's the difference really? Thanks, enjoy your vids, Jeff Calhagen. All right, Jeff. Once again, a little bit vague. I'm not fully understanding. Do you mean using a zoom lens on a DSLR, or do you mean using a zoom lens on just some regular video camera that you can get anywhere, like a 20x optical lens? If you're talking about on a DSLR, yeah, you can still get shallow depth of field. And because these cameras have such big sensors as compared to the video cameras, the old school video cameras of yore, even at f4, f5.6, even f8, you're still going to get a more shallow depth of field than you would at anything close to it on other cameras. And here's why. Okay, so depth of field. Here's a little bit of a film lesson. Depth of field talks about what's in focus as compared to what's out of focus. So you can see my hand back here is out of focus. Here it's in focus. And right there it's about out. So where is it in focus? It starts to be in focus about here, and then maybe it's out of focus there. So I've got a foot of playroom, and even there is still kind of scary. So as a foot of focus room, that would be shallow depth of field. If I were to change some settings on my camera, I could move lots of different places and be in focus. That's deep focus, or large depth of field, where you'd have 10, 20, infinite amount of feet in focus. So that's what depth of field is. How do you achieve depth of field? You're right. When you have a low f-stop, which means the camera is letting in lots of light, that tends to be what happens. It's a phenomenon of light. When light is going through a large open aperture, the focus is not as crystal clear. It's only in one spot. When you put the light through a tiny little aperture, all the light has to go through a little space, so it's focusing the light already. So since the light is being focused to a little hole and going through it, the light is already pretty condensed and already able to be, already focused. So if you've ever like stared off at something that's far away, and you make like a little hole with your hand like this, and you put it up to your eye, like say you're trying to read a sign that's really far away. If you make a little tiny hole with your hand and put it up and aim it right on the letters of that sign, you'll probably be able to make out what that sign says because it's far away, because you're focusing the light just through the tunnel of your hand. So once again, wide aperture, a lot of light coming through, not as easily focused. Little aperture, a little bit of light coming through, it's going to be more in focus. In terms of what numbers correspond to what f-stops, a large opening is a lower number. So, and for some reason it's f. Some guy, I guess, was named with a letter F in his name, and he invented these mathematical ratios of light. So if you're at an f-stop of an f8, it's going to be pretty small. If you're at something's beeping, it scares me. If you're at f8, you might be pretty small. If you're at f4, it's going to be a little bit bigger. If you're at f2.8, it's going to be bigger. f1.4, f1, they get exponentially larger as the numbers get smaller. You might know someone who has gauges in their ears. If you know anybody with like tattoos or anything, some people have the gauges, which are just holes. If you go, oh, I got a 22 gauge. 22, pretty small. It's an aperture. Oh, I got a 2 gauge. That's a big aperture. And then it gets into like inches, like an inch gauge, a 2-inch gauge. So same kind of mentality. So now that you know all these crazy things, he said, I understand that using a fast lens, fast meaning lets in a lot of light, with a low f-stop, such as 1.4, will give you a shallow depth of field. It's very true. But can't you use a zoom lens as well? Now, by zoom lens, once again, do you mean a zoom lens on the DSLRs? They have lenses that are 28 to 70, or 24 to 70 f2.8. Now, f2.8 is a good stop, smaller aperture than f1.4, but f2.8 still is going to give you some shallow depth of field. F1.4 is scary to shoot at because the focus is so critical. If I'm here, I'm out. If I'm here, I'm out. I've probably been out almost this whole video, and I'm at f3.2, and that's smaller hole than 2.8. So if I'm out of focus a lot of this video, I'm sorry, but I'm doing it on purpose to demonstrate a point. If I'm talking here at f3.2, I'm out. If I'm talking here 6 inches back at f3.2, I'm in focus. So, and I keep looking down to check where my focal line is. I've determined that it's right here, and I hope that's true. So now, if you're not talking about zoom lenses for DSLRs, and you're talking about those old school cameras that come with the stock lens on it, it's true. Even though those cameras have no depth of field whatsoever, and you zoom in all the way, you'll be able to see the difference. If you stand far back and zoom in all the way to your 20 times zoom, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more noticeable to focus from something in the foreground to something in the background. Problem is, if you're on a set where you don't have that much space to back up 20 feet, 30 feet, you're not going to be able to get the shot. But as I'm reading it, I don't think that's what you're talking about, but I'll go into it a little bit more. The reason why the DSLRs have nice shallow depth of field as opposed to the old school video cameras like your Panasonic HVX200 or your EX1Rs, things like that, or your NX5Us. The reason why the DSLRs have more shallow depth of field is because their sensor is bigger. The sensor on those cameras are smaller. Why is it then that those cameras are more expensive? The video cameras are more expensive because there's a lot more accoutrements on it. It's a lot more things that are friendly to video people, like XLR inputs, peaking, zebra bars, bars and tone coming out of it. The fact that you can come out HDMI straight out of it raw. The DSLRs don't have these things that video people and higher end film people are used to. So that's what makes these that's what makes the DSLRs a lot cheaper, because they lack those things. So since the old school video cameras have a smaller sensor, think about it. The chip that's the sensor, that's the thing that's the light hits that turns it into digital images, is only this big. And what was I saying about apertures? The smaller the aperture, the more depth of field you're going to get. The sensor is only this big to begin with, so the light has to be condensed down to a smaller surface area. So therefore, you're going to get shallow. You're going to get deep focus. This 5D cameras, the sensor is a lot bigger, so a lot more light hitting the sensor. Therefore, a lot more shallow depth of field. I hope I answered your question in there somewhere. On the next one. All right, here we are. We're on the final question. It's from Kamishimo Production. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I thank you, Steve, for all the tutorials you give us. Awesome is the word. Thank you very much. I did film a video in an open field. There was background music blaring, and I do not want the background music that was very clear when I transferred to my computer. Once again, a little bit of a typo. How do I get rid of the background music? I only want to keep the audio of the speeches of the people and not the background music. How do I remove the background music in Final Cut Pro X, version 10.0.1? Once again, from Kamishimo Production. When I saw this question, I immediately responded and said, I'm going to answer this question. This is a great question, and it is a great question. I'm going to start off the question with, I'm sorry, Kamishimo Productions, but you can't. So, bye. No, I'm just kidding. I hate to break it to you, but you can't do it. It's impossible. It's just something about shooting a video, something about shooting filmmaking. If there is music and speeches on the same track, there's no way to take them off of each other. And like I said earlier, I'm not an audio aficionado. I'm not an audio guy. There might be some crazy filter or something that exists that maybe you can pay somebody to work on it for hundreds of thousands of dollars, I guess. But so far as I know, if you're talking and there's speaking in the background, you can't get it out. You just can't do it, especially if, as I'm talking, the music is going, as it's happening. If I were to say a sentence and then pause, and then someone farts, and then I pause, and then I keep talking, yes, I can always take out the fart, so long as we record room tone, so long as I record 30 seconds of quiet. That way I can speak, fart, I take that 30 seconds of room tone, I put it over, I take out the fart and I put in the room tone, and you can fix that. But I have no remedy for you, and I'm sorry, but but here's something you can be happy about. At least now you've learned something. If you're in a shoot and there's music blaring and you need good audio, good dialogue without music, you're gonna have to go up to those people and say, excuse me, I'm so sorry, we're shooting something right now. Could you just stop the music for 5 minutes while I get the shot? A lot can happen just by asking people. If if you're nice and you say it in the most polite way you can, they should be really nice people and they should shut it off for you and wait the 5 minutes. If they don't, if they want to be dicks or whatever, then you just say, okay, I'm sorry to bother you guys, and enjoy your music. It sounds awful. It sounds awesome. And I'll go somewhere else. And you pick up all your stuff and you go someplace else where it's quiet. My roommate just came home, so I'm going to end it now. That was Steve. I'm Steve DeCasa. Happy filmmaking. Peace.